The story begins with Kazuhiko slurping some noodles, and once he's done, he checks his schedule and heads to a meeting. Currently, he works as a business consultant and labor attorney for insurance companies. Moreover, Kazuhiko lives alone since his parents have passed away, only working 4 days a week and gets the rest off. Once Kazuhiko's done with work, he returns to his house and slurps some more noodles until he feels his house shaking. However, being the chill guy that he is, Kazuhiko ignores it and heads to bed. The next morning, he notices a strange hole in his backyard, and since he's got some free time, Kazuhiko decides to head inside that hole. There, he finds a staircase that leads him to a strange-looking door, and as soon as he opens it, a voice begins communicating to him, calling Kazuhiko the first contractor who activated the dungeon system. Furthermore, he receives a skill-named card gacha along with a character card named Akin. Eventually, those voices quiet down, and Kazuhiko sees a mommy with big milkers standing in front of him. To his surprise, she calls him her master, and without wasting any time, Kazuhiko does what any normal person might do and starts scanning her maxed-out body from head to toe. That girl then formally greets Kazuhiko and introduces herself as the ninja named Akin. Apparently, she is the manifestation of one of the 108 pillars built in the dungeon, who has been tasked to welcome the first person who enters the dungeon. Kazuhiko rethinks the whole situation and decides to gather as much information as possible. For this, he first asks Akin about the strange voice, and she informs him that the dungeon system refers to one of the ruling bodies of the universe. Akin further mentions that in the upcoming years, 666 dungeons will be created, and each appearance will be random, appearing in 66 to 67 places at a time. Not only that, but dungeons rank from F to S, and their ranking depends on the difficulty of monsters. Moreover, weapons foreign to the dungeon are not allowed inside, but luckily, Kazuhiko has been graced by the dungeon system, so he is eligible to obtain the perks. After hearing this, Kazuhiko figures that they will have to rely on skills, to which Akin agrees, saying that he can obtain cards for magical beasts, and asks if he wants to perform a dive. However, Kazuhiko refuses as he wants to prepare some essential things before, and for now, he decides to head back to his place. Akin lets him know that she can only exist within the dungeon, so his plan to boast about such a hot chick to his friends won't work. For the time being, Kazuhiko heads back to his house and looks at his watch, noticing that the time on the watch and his phone are different. This whole situation starts to make Kazuhiko wonder if his watch is broken, or if time flows differently inside the dungeon. To test his hypothesis, Kazuhiko brings another watch to hang one of them inside the dungeon using a thread. As soon as he starts to lower the watch inside the dungeon, the second hand of the watch begins moving like crazy. Nonetheless, he puts it a little deeper, and after a minute has passed, he brings it out. After comparing the results, Kazuhiko notices that only 1 minute has passed outside, but on the watch he lowered in the dungeon, 2 hours have passed. Later, Akin lets him know that the first floor is a safe zone, which means monsters can't appear here. With that, she strikes quite a tempting pose, telling Kazuhiko that he can spend the 6 days exploring her instead. But Kazuhiko doesn't seem to care about that, and asks what she meant when she said save the world. Akin replies by saying that if humans are unable to defeat all 666 dungeons in 10 years, monsters will cascade out, and a great monster stampede will occur, which will devour the whole world. Thinking about this makes Kazuhiko realize that the fate of the world depends on his actions, and any misstep could destroy it. Nonetheless, Kazuhiko decides to calm himself down as running away is not an option. He then wonders if the government will believe him, but even if they do, then so many people would realize that the world might end. Eventually, Kazuhiko tells Akin that he needs to verify that he was the first contact and find the other dungeons as well. But before that, he also wishes to remodel the dungeon and calls it Dungeon Do-It-Yourself. Just like that, he spent the last 2 days creating this do-it-yourself dungeon, and currently, Kazuhiko is having a good time enjoying receiving a foot massage from the goth baddie herself. After that, she offers to make him feel hot, and about using the God-given gifts on her body, but for the time being, Kazuhiko refuses, promising to ask for it later. Later that day, he also brings a sofa in the dungeon, but when Akin starts getting a bit too clingy, Kazuhiko gets a bit annoyed, causing her to get mad and return to her card form. Sometime later, Kazuhiko gathers all the essential items he might need and heads to explore the dungeon with Akane. Soon after, the two of them come across some goblins, and while Kazuhiko is busy stalking those goblins, one of them ends up biting his arm. In a state of panic, Kazuhiko throws it away, but the goblins manage to get up and begin charging Kazuhiko once again. This time, Kazuhiko ends up punching it right in the face, which results in the goblin getting eliminated and turning into a coin. Confused, Kazuhiko questions if it just dropped money, to which Akane agrees, saying that it seems like this dungeon is the type that drops money for a reward. She further explains that the first floor is normally easy and contains slimes or bugs to attract more people. But since this is an A-rank dungeon, it's throwing goblins right from the start. Additionally, Akane is impressed that he was able to eliminate it with a single punch and gets told that it's all thanks to the brass knuckles he's wearing. Since the dungeon classified it as an armor instead of a weapon, it doesn't break the foreign weapon rule. Seeing that Kazuhiko found a loophole, Akane is even more impressed and suggests going even further. Just like that, the two of them continue crushing all the goblins that come their way, and ultimately, Akane informs Kazuhiko that they have seen most of the first floor, suggesting they head back to get some rest. However, Kazuhiko mentions that he'd like to see the second floor, but Akane tells him not to and advises Kazuhiko to advance to E rank on the first floor, because most dungeons tend to increase the danger level significantly on the second floor. Kazuhiko agrees and decides to head to the safe zone for now. Once there, he examines the goblin card he acquired after defeating them and gets told by Akane that it's a monster card, which is another reward for defeating monsters, and with this, he can summon goblins inside the dungeon. After thinking about it, Kazuhiko figures that it's possible to acquire 2 cards per 100 monsters eliminated, and currently he has 10 of them. Suddenly, the status window appears, and the card gacha number goes up by 1. This makes Kazuhiko wonder if he can pull gacha with only 10 monster cards, and asks what would happen if Akane were used for gacha instead. Akane questions if he would sacrifice such a fine shorty just for a random skill, causing Kazuhiko to apologize and reassure Akane that he wouldn't let her go unless he died or conquered all the dungeons. Nonetheless, he touches the screen with his goblin card, causing the screen to change and show the 4 categories of gacha available. Curious, Kazuhiko asks if he can use the weapons and equipment received from the gacha, to which Akane agrees, informing him that in order to bring them back to the surface, he will have to make them materialize first. With that being said, Kazuhiko tries his luck with the gacha game and receives a potion. However, after seeing that it's of a common rank, Kazuhiko gets a bit disappointed, and Akane tries to cheer him up by saying that the potion can heal all his scratches and bruises in the blink of an eye. Furthermore, she asks him not to get so discouraged, as he doesn't need a potion to begin with, because she can lick all his wounds for him. Kazuhiko asks her not to get so close when, unexpectedly, he notices something really soft pushing against his arm. Akane then mentions that she has noticed his raging desires for a while and allows him to do whatever he wants with her. But to her shock, Kazuhiko pushes her away and reminds her that he's only an F rank, saying that he'd like to get freaky once he gets a bit stronger. She ends up agreeing and asks Kazuhiko to reserve some time for her soon. Furthermore, Akane reassures Kazuhiko that no matter what happens, she will always be on his side. After a few days, Kazuhiko calculates that he has defeated 500 gold coins, and they dropped 503 coins worth 500 yen, making a total of 276,000 yen. This makes him wonder what he should do about the taxes, and when Akane questions him about what a tax is, he informs him that he needs to declare the source of income to the government. But for now, Kazuhiko decides to focus on conquering the dungeons instead of focusing on the money. Furthermore, he notices that his shirt and belt feel a bit loose, and Akane figures that it might be due to the strengthening factor. Apparently, it's the smoke monsters that are produced when defeated, and if Kazuhiko absorbs them and trains his body, he will experience dramatic growth. Kazuhiko realizes that he is starting to feel a change in his dad bod, and figures that he won't be dignified as a consultant if he gets too skinny. With that, he says his goodbyes to Akane and returns to work. During a meeting with his childhood friend, Iwamoto, he gets complimented for getting slimmer as well. Kazuhiko then presents the training plans and career grant application forms. Iwamoto then discusses the fact that they are getting complaints regarding the cigarette smoke and mentions how he can now hold a meeting regarding this, thanks to Kazuhiko. Additionally, Iwamoto asks Kazuhiko the reason he is not becoming one of the executives, to which Kazuhiko replies by saying that he prefers to be a lone wolf. Once the meeting is over, Kazuhiko returns to the dungeon and starts working on his laptop when, out of nowhere, Akane appears. She then puts those cakes on his lap, causing Kazuhiko to warn her about how he might actually do it with her if she invites him like this. However, this is exactly what Akane wants, as she has been waiting for it. Nonetheless, the virgin boy asks her to get off since he has finished his work. Later, Kazuhiko talks about how he plans to gather enough goblin cards to draw 10 times, and gets reminded by Akane that he will need to eliminate 5,000 goblins to do that. To her surprise, Kazuhiko already wants to eliminate 100 goblins in 2 hours, and when Akane argues that he will need 100 hours to achieve this, Kazuhiko begins planning how many hours he will give to each task in order to achieve this goal. He is doing this in order to determine how often he ranks up, and since he brought towels and an air mattress, Kazuhiko suggests testing it right away. With that, the two of them return to slaying those poor goblins, and after fighting for some time, Kazuhiko realizes that running followed by a kick and a punch is the best way to deal with them. Ultimately, he manages to defeat 100 goblins, which took him 110 minutes, a bit faster than he anticipated. As expected, 2 cards are dropped, but he still hasn't received a rank up. Nonetheless, Kazuhiko continues moving forward while Akane contemplates how she never had a master who executes, verifies, and improves to achieve his goal. Once they are done, the two of them enjoy eating some food together, and seeing that the card drop rate hasn't changed, Kazuhiko decides to do a few more rounds. Later that day, while fighting the goblins, Kazuhiko suddenly stops, and when Akane inquires about the reason, he informs her that the goblin disappeared with just 1 punch. She then checks his status window and notices that his rank has gone up. Following that, Kazuhiko asks her about the empty section in the status and gets informed that skills are acquired from skill orbs or many years of experience, and seeing it listed as empty is a first for her as well. Kazuhiko then decides to check his skills later, and since he has reached E rank, Kazuhiko wants to do the calculations again. After he is done eating again, Kazuhiko finally decides to check the empty skill slot, but before he gets the chance to do so, Akane puts his head on her lap, giving him a super close view of those bouncy balls. Nonetheless, Kazuhiko opens the empty slot and notices the skills named swordsmanship, spearmanship, and martial arts skill. This makes Kazuhiko realize that he can choose any skill from these. Akane advises him to take martial arts, as Kazuhiko's combat has been focused on physical attacks so far. However, Kazuhiko refuses, saying that he has to deal with 666 dungeons and needs a skill that can form or unite a group. Later that day, Kazuhiko returns to his house to take a shower, and as soon as he gets out, the doorbell rings. Kazuhiko then opens the door and finds a pretty, cute girl standing on his doorstep, informing Kazuhiko that she is here for her part-time job. After entering his house, she mentions how there is more garbage than usual, along with so many pre-made meals, letting him know that it's pretty bad for his health. Apparently, her name is Mary, Kazuhiko's relative who comes once a week to his house to do errands as a part-time job. Nevertheless, Kazuhiko tells her that this is due to some circumstances, requesting her not to ask for details. Additionally, he realizes that her appearance right now is a problem, as he was planning on going back into the dungeon, but now he can't. He then notices Mary staring at him, and when asked if there's a problem, she questions if he has lost some weight. Kazuhiko reassures her that he's the same as he has always been, and informs Mary that he will be promoting her from the minimum wage she has been receiving since he got a new job. After hearing this, Mary gets excited as she has a school trip in October, and the increase in pay will really help. Kazuhiko is already aware that her family has struggled financially since the divorce, and the least he can do for her is increase her allowance. Following that, he asks Mary about her grandmother's health, to which she replies by saying that she doesn't seem to be doing that well and probably needs to be hospitalized, but that requires a lot of money. Her mother is also having a hard time, so Mary is starting to think about quitting school to work. But to her surprise, Kazuhiko advises her to finish school and go to college afterward, saying that he will manage the money somehow. Mary thanks Kazuhiko, but adds the fact that her mom feels bad that she has to rely on him so much. Kazuhiko argues by saying that he wants Mary to help him with his new job, which won't take long, but at the same time will put her mother at ease. Curious, Mary questions about the job, wondering if he wants her to sell her feet pics. However, Kazuhiko disagrees and advises Mary not to overthink it and to do whatever she wants. Once she is done with her work, Kazuhiko hands her the month's pay, letting her know that he increased it from 8,000 yen to 10,000 yen. After she leaves, Kazuhiko decides to tell Mary when the time is right and, for now, plans to return to the dungeon. Apparently, he received a steel spear from the weapon gacha yesterday, and while he's checking it out, Akane appears with her bouncy bits, asking if he's finished with today's work. Kazuhiko informs her that he's got some ideas on how to use the money from the dungeon, and for now, he is thinking of practicing his weapon. With that, he heads deeper and starts obliterating the goblins with his spear. When Akane asks him about his spear handling, he lets her know that he's getting the hang of it. Since he has hunted all the goblins, they decide to head to the second floor. Once they are on that floor, Kazuhiko mentions that it feels like monsters can appear right away, asking if there is no safe zone. Akane lets him know that there should be a safe zone somewhere, along with a teleportation array back to the first floor. As they walk further, Kazuhiko realizes that there's a maze on the second floor, but it's meaningless in front of Akane. Before long, they run into a D-rank monster called Orc, which catches Kazuhiko by surprise. Akane begins to panic as she didn't expect a D-rank monster to appear and signals Kazuhiko to stay back. Just as the Orc starts charging them, Akane yells at Kazuhiko to run away while she jumps above the Orc and finishes it off with a single kick. This time, the Orc drops a 1,000 yen bill, and Akane tells him that this is unexpected, as she had expected E-rank monsters to appear. But since a D-rank monster appeared, she suggested heading back to the first floor and thinking of a plan. However, Kazuhiko seems to think completely differently and figures that the difference when testing the gacha should be clear. Akane tries to warn him by saying that an Orc can easily eliminate a human, but Kazuhiko argues that they drop a 1,000 yen bill, and if he hunts 100 of them, that'll make 100,000 yen, so he wants to progress further. Just like that, another Orc appears in front of him, and Kazuhiko plans to first stab its gut and then aim for the head. But to his shock, Kazuhiko gets completely slimmed by that fat Orc and ends up losing his consciousness. Akane runs up to him and uses the potion he received from the gacha to heal the wound and wake him up. She then apologizes for using 2 potions, but Kazuhiko believes that it was the right decision as she saved his life. Furthermore, he realizes that he chose the wrong kind of weapon and suggests fighting the Orc once again. With that being said, he finds himself in front of an Orc once again, and this time, Kazuhiko has realized that the Orcs put their weight on their knees when attacking, and if he targets the knees, there's nothing to be afraid of. Just like that, after crushing its knees, Kazuhiko lands an attack on its face, defeating it once and for all. Back in the safe zone, Kazuhiko is impressed by the fact that he defeated an Orc and figures that they can move to the 3rd floor at this rate. However, Akane advises him not to overexert himself as she doesn't want to go through the same experience. Nonetheless, Kazuhiko decides to stay on the 2nd floor for now as he wants to advance to D rank. Hearing this makes Akane praise Kazuhiko for challenging the limits of human potential, as F rank is for ordinary people, E rank is for athletes, and D rank is for legendary warriors. Kazuhiko has also realized that while he can defeat goblins in one hit, Orcs are pretty tough, so he needs to strengthen his body with supplements. Akane then asks if he's still going to work above ground, as he already defeated 6,000 goblins and gathered a ton of money. Kazuhiko informs her that the world above ground is an information society, and if one makes a lot of money, the government is going to check its source. However, since the amount he earned from the dungeon has gotten quite big, Kazuhiko decides to consult Iwamoto about it. Later, Iwamoto informs him that a company he works with is planning on selling land, but it'll cost a lot of money. But Kazuhiko lets him know that he doesn't mind, as he plans on buying all the land in cash in a lump sum. After hearing this and realizing that Kazuhiko called them out of nowhere, he figures that it's a positive story. But just in case, Iwamoto asks if it's problematic money, to which Kazuhiko disagrees, asking him what he might do if he found a cave with money flowing out of it. Iwamoto lets him know that he will first check if the money is real and then inform the police. But if he couldn't report it to the police, he would just ignore it and might consider it as an income if he needed it someday. Ultimately, Iwamoto informs him that by circulating the money in a private virtual currency market thousands of times, it can become untraceable and is then transferred to a bank account as consulting fees. In other words, it's called money laundering, and there are some people in Japan familiar with this. He then gives Kazuhiko the contact information of one of those people. That same night, Kazuhiko meets up with the person Iwamoto told him about and hands him the bag filled with money. That person informs Kazuhiko that if the amount is over 100 million, he will take 10% as commission, and the rest will be laundered. Curious, Kazuhiko asks if there's a chance that paper companies will be exposed, and that person reassures Kazuhiko that there will be no problem. At the same time in New York, an explosion occurs, and when some people go to check, they find a giant hole in the ground. Meanwhile, at the White House, the American president questions if there are some fools trying to attack their nation, but one of his men informs him that they have not been attacked, but two unknown caves with different time flows have appeared in the country. While they are still investigating, there are reports of unknown creatures appearing. After hearing all this, the president mentions that America must not be threatened by any kind of danger, and any enemy attack into the land of insane medical bills shall not be tolerated. Elsewhere in Japan, a couple is finally planning on shaking their car in an empty parking lot when suddenly, a dungeon appears there as well. In Nagatacho, a picture of a monster is captured, and the government discusses how it looks like a kobold from manga. They further talk about the sinkhole in the parking lot and the two policemen getting attacked by monsters who rushed to the scene. Not only that, but some police officers tried entering the dungeon with weapons, but the weapons turned into cards and they were attacked by the same creature. Apparently, they are already aware of similar events taking place in New York and Chicago, but no damage has been confirmed like in Japan. After hearing all this, the Japanese Prime Minister says that they must proceed with caution as this is an unknown natural disaster. On the other hand, Kazuhiko watches the news report on the television he has set up in the dungeon and realizes that the whole world is in a state of panic. Akane mocks those people by saying that such fools have to learn the hard way. But Kazuhiko informs her that he is looking for comrades who vow to conquer the dungeons together with him. When Akane asks if they should get started right away, he refuses, suggesting they wait to see how the world reacts, as in this dungeon buster's company, he needs people with a steadfast mind, those who might not just for themselves but for others as well. A little about Mary's mother. Her name is Shiori, and she was born and raised in Asugi. She was married to her boyfriend, but once Mary was born, he went to buy some milk and is still busy doing so. Due to this, Shiori had to raise Mary on her own, and in the midst of that, her second cousin, Kazuhiko, visited them once and asked Mary to work part-time at his place. Kazuhiko is 6 years older than Shiori, and he hired Mary for 30,000 yen a month. Since then, 3 years have passed, and currently, Mary returns to her house and informs Shiori that Kazuhiko has raised her pay. She further informs her that Kazuhiko promised to introduce her to a job where she can earn even more. Concerned, Shiori questions if it's some shady job, but Mary reassures her that Kazuhiko said it's nothing like that, and he will show her the place next time. The next morning, Kazuhiko talks to his colleague about the contract, saying that he's confirmed the 300 million yen in cash and will transfer the 270 million yen after the 10% cut to the specified account. He then lies on his bed, thinking that after the taxes, there will be about half of the 270 million yen left, making him realize that he needs a bit more funds. Later that day, Kazuhiko is on his way to someplace in his car when he runs into traffic and wonders if there's an accident. Kazuhiko then gets out of his car and sees a giant hole in the middle of the road. He instantly realizes that it's a dungeon and figures that the second wave has finally come. People gathered around started to wonder what this hole was and decided to call the police. Just then, Kazuhiko steps in and, after checking it out, confirms that a dungeon has appeared on the new Yokohama road. Additionally, he decides to dive in a little and come out right away. Once inside, he notices that it's a stone dungeon and wonders how different it is from the dungeon back home. Eventually, he reaches the dungeon's safe zone and, after gearing up, is ready to see what will appear. To his surprise, a cute bunny appears in front of him, and as it starts charging Kazuhiko, the bunny that was cute once turns into a complete menace. Without any hesitation, Kazuhiko instantly punches it using his brass knuckles and defeats it with a single hit. To his surprise, the bunny drops something else instead of money, and after taking a look, he realizes that it's some kind of stone. Nonetheless, he walks around and, after staking the area out, returns to the surface. The people outside are shocked to see him back so quickly, and Kazuhiko is already aware that, to them, he returned in an instant. Furthermore, he tells them that it wouldn't be dangerous as long as they don't enter it, and says that it's probably the same dungeon as the one that appeared in the Umeda parking lot a month ago. Lastly, he asks the people gathered to contact the police, and when one of them asks who he is, Kazuhiko introduces himself as the one responsible for eradicating the dungeons, calling himself a dungeon buster. Later that day, Kazuhiko shows the stone to Akane, and she mentions that it seems like a type of magic stone. Apparently, these stones are crystallized magic powers, allowing anyone with a magic tool to use magic. While Kazuhiko believes that they must be essential for civilizations that have developed magical technology, he can't understand why they appeared on Earth, which is scientifically developed. In reply, Akane asks Kazuhiko what he thinks the people of this country and the world need the most, saying that she believes that's the answer. Following that, the two of them enter the third floor of the dungeon, where they are confronted by skeleton knights. However, he easily manages to deal with them, as while they carry swords, they are weaker than an orc, but worth 4,000 yen. The choice of weapon also works in Kazuhiko's favor, and Akane believes that he would be fine as long as those chunky orcs don't appear. Once they are done finishing off the skeletons, Kazuhiko realizes that he's getting better than expected and decides to put on some weights while hunting in order to rank up. Meanwhile, at the United Nations conference, many ambassadors from different countries argue about the number of dungeons in their countries, demanding financial help. Just then, the ambassador of America intervenes, saying that China has way more dungeons compared to America and believes that it is proportional to the population and not the size of the land. Another ambassador adds that their country is smaller than Japan and only 2 dungeons have appeared, which is why he's confident that the American ambassador is correct. When some people start to suggest withdrawing troops from national borders to deal with this situation, some of the ambassadors refuse, as there's a risk of invasion from other countries. Just then, one attention-seeking nerd hits the table, telling them that this is the time for cooperation and lifting the sanctions against their country. Elsewhere, at the White House, the American president is informed that there is heavy demand regarding the disclosure of information about dungeons. However, the president argues that no one will believe stuff about weapons turning into cards and status displays, so it's best to just blow up the entire dungeon. His assistant then suggests announcing it jointly with other world leaders at the conference, as dungeon countermeasures will likely be on the agenda at the upcoming meeting in Nagoya. Luckily, the American president seems to like this idea and has decided to go ahead with it. At the same time, Kazuhiko is still inside the dungeon, putting those skeleton knights in their place. He has already defeated 300 in just 45 minutes and is confident that it should have earned him enough. According to his calculation, it's around 1.6 million yen, that is 36 million yen in 1 day of Earth time. Akane reminds him that this means he will have to defeat 200,000 skeletons in 6 days, asking just how much he plans to fight. Just then, the status window pops up and congratulates him for unlocking the racial limit break. As Kazuhiko is the first one to achieve this feat, the legendary card called Cheeky Emily is awarded to him. With that being said, the card appears in front of Kazuhiko, and a short, busty girl appears out of it. With a weapon in hand, she scolds them for peeking into someone's privacy and introduces herself as one of the 108 Pillars, a genius magician. Kazuhiko instantly realizes that she is the kind of person who is good at asserting themselves, but doesn't communicate well enough. Nonetheless, Akane greets Emily and lets her know that she is Akane, a female ninja, which shocks Emily as she didn't think he would summon another one of the 108 Pillars besides her. Following that, she points her weapon at Akane and confronts her for wearing such a lewd outfit and belt, realizing that she must have been trying to get a taste of the master's manhood. She can't believe Akane was trying to steal away the master before Emily could, and announces that from now on, she is going to be the one in charge. Since their master seems like a dull man, they all should just obey her. To her surprise, Kazuhiko picks her up and, after asking Akane to keep an eye out for monsters, informs her that he is going to discipline Emily. Akane asks him to punish her thoroughly to his heart's content, while completely ignoring Emily's call for help. After entering another room, he throws her onto the ground, telling Emily that he doesn't need an ally with just a loud mouth and strong ego when the world is at stake. Furthermore, he gives her the choice to die right now, change her attitude, or find herself another master. But instead of choosing between the options, she smirks and reminds Kazuhiko that she is a great magician. However, Kazuhiko couldn't care less and tells Emily to either call him Kazuhiko-sama or Master, as he won't allow any other names. Annoyed, Emily asks who Kazuhiko thinks he is, and seeing that she is still not budging, Kazuhiko decides to teach her some manners. He then slaps her on the cheeks, causing Emily to cry. After some time, Kazuhiko lets Emily know that, while he doesn't mind her being cheeky, he won't tolerate her disrespecting him and Akane. He further informs her that in 10 years the world will be destroyed, and to prevent that, he wants her powers. But if she can't stand calling him her master, she is free to return to her card and choose another master to her liking. While wiping off her tears, Emily agrees to fight next to Kazuhiko, saying that she is a legendary rare card after all. Later that day, Kazuhiko draws something on the board and lets the girls know that he is planning to explain the dungeons they've gone through so far. 98 days have passed since the dungeon system was activated, and now that the second cluster phenomenon has passed, more than 130 dungeons might have appeared. Emily asks if he hasn't confirmed the numbers, to which Kazuhiko replies that, according to the United Nations, only 36 have appeared, and including the unconfirmed ones, there are likely over 130. She then asks Kazuhiko about gathering allies, saying that she would prefer working with other character cards over humans. Kazuhiko informs her that, for now, he plans on making their next ally a human, and reason number one for this is that dungeons are going to be open to the public soon. The second reason is that he wants to observe what happens when people other than himself enter the dungeon. And the last reason is that he wants the world to recognize the Dungeon Buster organization. Hearing this makes Emily wonder when Kazuhiko is going to start the organization, to which he replies by saying that he will once they are done moving. Meanwhile, at the conference, the American president reveals that black stones produced by dungeons can split water to produce hydrogen and will create a demand for hydrogen-powered systems. Furthermore, he suggests simultaneous global release of information and establishment of a dungeon management organization. The Japanese representative agrees with the American president, and when one of them asks to elaborate on the dungeon management organization, she is informed that it means establishing a new profession specialized in exploring dungeons and having an international organization manage it. One of the presidents mentions that unknown medicines and technologies can also be uncovered, and wonders if there's a term that captures an unknown explorer. The Japanese president intervenes, telling him that these people are called adventurers. A few days later, Kazuhiko finds out from the news about the establishment of a dungeon adventurers organization, and that adventurers may be recruited from the general public. Apparently, Kazuhiko was already aware that it would eventually be opened up to the private sector, but he didn't expect it to happen so soon. With that, he decides to start gathering a team and invites Mary along with her mother. The two of them are helping Kazuhiko move his stuff to the new place, and after he thanks them for the help, Shiori mentions how it's very unlike him to move house so suddenly. Mary then notices a stab-proof vest and a stab-proof shirt in his belongings, making her wonder what Kazuhiko has been up to. This reminds Kazuhiko that he actually has something to talk to them about. With that, he takes the two of them inside the dungeon and informs them that it's one of the dungeons currently causing a stir around the world. He further explains about everything regarding a dungeon appearing in his garden, to him sealing the entrance and eliminating the monsters. Eventually, he drops the bomb and asks Mary to help him out with his work inside the dungeon, as when the dungeons are fully activated, there's no way of knowing how much damage humanity may suffer. This makes Shiori question why he's choosing Mary, to which he replies by saying that it's so Mary can protect herself. Kazuhiko then explains that if dungeons aren't conquered, monsters will start to overflow the surface, and in order to prevent it, he needs as many people as possible. Even if what Kazuhiko said is true, Shiori still refuses to let her daughter do something so dangerous. Kazuhiko argues by saying that he will pay 2,000 yen per hour, which will be in dungeon time. Seeing a confused look on Shiori's face, Kazuhiko elaborates that time in the dungeon passes 144 times faster, so working on the surface for 1 hour equals 144 hours in the dungeon. That means for working 144 hours in the dungeon, he will be paying Mary 288,000 yen. While Mary gets excited after hearing the amount, Shiori seems a bit disappointed at Kazuhiko for luring people with money. Additionally, Kazuhiko shows them the potion and, after informing them about its benefits, decides to give it as a present so they can believe him. Lastly, he whips out the 2 cards he has, causing the 2 thick baddies to pop out of them. Kazuhiko lets them know that they are characters that play an active role within the dungeon and are members of the Dungeon Busters. Both Akane and Emily make sure to introduce themselves to the mother-daughter pair, and Kazuhiko adds that they provide support in battle and help retrieve items. But even after seeing all this, Shiori still refuses, saying that as a mother, she can't let Mary go into the dungeon. Mary also thanks Kazuhiko for sharing everything and lets him know that she wants some time to think about it. Kazuhiko agrees, and after thanking them for the help today, hands them the advance payment. After they leave, Akane questions him about the discussions, and he informs her that Shiori got upset at him. And at the same time, he is not all that comfortable about involving a relative in the dungeons either. However, they have just 10 years to overcome all the dungeons, so he wants someone to take care of him if something were to happen to him. Meanwhile, on their way back home, Mary tells Shiori that Kazuhiko has never asked her to help him like this before and adds that thanks to his support, she has never felt lonely even when it was just the 2 of them. This is why, if there's a way she can help Kazuhiko, she really wants to. Hearing this makes Shiori smile, and she asks Mary not to push herself and go to school properly, surprising Mary as she can't believe her mother agreed to it. The next day, Mary visits Kazuhiko's house, letting him know that she is here for the new part-time job. Without wasting any time, Mary starts her work in the dungeon, and although it's only been 30 minutes, rocking the 5-kilogram vest is starting to wear her out. Despite that, Kazuhiko suggests pushing forward a little further, as in dungeons, the only way to progress is on foot. Meanwhile, Emily tells Mary that she doesn't have to be like Kazuhiko and wear such heavy weights on her body. Although it's really painful at first, once she gets used to it, she will be able to keep up with Kazuhiko. Eventually, Mary gives in, saying that she can't walk anymore, but Kazuhiko is impressed that she even did this much and asks her to rest. Just then, she notices a card on the ground with a bunny on it. Kazuhiko lets her know that it's called a monster card and they can be used to summon monsters inside the dungeons. Seeing how cute this little thing is, Mary asks if she can summon it, but Kazuhiko refuses, telling her that she is not ready to summon monster cards on her own. However, Emily tells Kazuhiko that it's fine, as cute things are cute after all. In the end, Mary ends up summoning the bunny and gets super excited after seeing just how cute it is. For the time being, she decides to call it Mew but gets scolded by Kazuhiko for summoning it without permission. He lets her know that, although it's cute, this rabbit is still a monster and advises her not to approach or touch it casually. But Akane adds by saying that it's all right because monsters that are kept as pets can grow in strength and suggests experimenting with how quickly they can grow. Emily also agrees, saying that it will keep Mary happy and help keep things competitive for her. In the end, Kazuhiko agrees, and with that, they continue dealing with the monsters further in the dungeon. Mary is impressed to see Emily's magical powers, wondering if she can use magic someday as well. Kazuhiko also mentions how efficient and useful magic is. Hearing all the praise causes Emily to get on her high horse, telling them that she is the most powerful magician of all the 108 pillars. Kazuhiko then decides to head a little deeper into the dungeon, and soon after, they run into a couple of goblins. Akane informs Mary of everything she needs to know about the goblins and plans to defeat them on her own. Once she is done, Akane reminds Mary that she also needs to learn how to deal with monsters herself. This makes Mary wonder if the shovel or the sword would be better to fight the monsters, and Akane lets her know that anything is fine as long as she doesn't leave herself open. As going into a dungeon is risking one's life, Mary needs to get used to that as well. Before long, Mary manages to defeat her first goblin using a sword, and Akane figures that her excellent performance must be from all the weight training. Suddenly, a goblin sneaks up to them and charges Mary, but just in time, her pet bunny appears and kicks the goblin out of existence, impressing both Mary and Akane. She then hugs the bunny, saying that he's not just a normal rabbit, and with him around, they are as strong as 100 people. After that, they give the rabbit some beef stew, which comes as a shock to Kazuhiko. This makes Akane explain that monsters are omnivores and they eat meat, vegetables, or whatever else they get their hands on. Additionally, Kazuhiko mentions that if Mary were able to defeat a goblin in one hit, she must be strong enough to handle the rabbit. She gets overjoyed after hearing this and promises to take good care of the rabbit. He then hands her the card for the rabbit, Mew, and starts watching the television. According to the media channels, a third wave of dungeon outbreaks has been confirmed, even though it has only been 36 days since the second wave. Due to this, the Snow Festival in Hokkaido has also been cancelled due to the appearance of a dungeon. Scared, Mary asks if everything is going to be all right, and Kazuhiko reassures her that they will take care of it. After giving it a little more thought, Kazuhiko realizes that 36 days is a tenth of a year, and according to that, they can expect 7 more dungeon waves to occur. Additionally, the government can't be held responsible for what happens inside the dungeon. And even with a multinational organization opening up the dungeons to civilians, it will probably take around a year to implement proper measures. On the other hand, there is a boy named Shingo who studies in the same school as Mary and calls her an idol. He is aware that there's not a single boy in school who isn't interested in her. Although he is down bad for her, it's really hard for Shingo to approach Mary due to how popular she is. As he stalks her, some of Mary's friends mention that she has changed, wondering if she got a boyfriend or if she's getting offers from talent agencies. But Mary lets them know that it's nothing like that. However, they refuse to believe her and figure that it must be the guy she is hanging around named Kazuhiko. As Mary walks away, denying the accusations, Shingo gets furious after hearing about this man and decides to investigate. On her way back, Mary is glad that no one found out about her work, as it would have been a problem, when suddenly, a car pulls up and a man exits, asking if she's Mary. He then introduces himself as Wakagi from Allure's production, asking Mary if she's interested in becoming an idol. Knowing that she doesn't have time for this as she needs to head to Kazuhiko's place, Mary refuses, asking him to leave. But when he forcefully puts his hand on her shoulder, asking Mary to rethink her decision, she grabs his arm with her insane strength, threatening to call the police and telling him not to show his face ever again. After she returns home, Mary informs Shiori about the strange man waiting outside, but their conversation is interrupted when Kazuhiko appears in his car. On their way to his house, Kazuhiko laughs at what happened to Mary and says that they might ask her to advertise as an indecent idol. Mary mentions that it feels awkward when he says indecent, as she has gained a bit of weight. Kazuhiko figures that it's probably the influence of the enhancement factors, as it has strengthened her bones and muscles. While she's still a pretty young girl, her physical ability is already that of a professional fighter. After reaching the dungeons, they make Mary wear some pretty obscene clothes that even a Playboy model might hesitate to wear. When Mary questions Kazuhiko about it, he informs her that it's a rare rank equipment called Virgin's Garb, and it provides a buff to physical resistance and boosts magic. However, it is hard for him as he doesn't know which body part of hers to admire. Emily suggests finding a pure white cloak since Mary is a holy mage, but Kazuhiko refuses, saying that he isn't going to waste gacha to pull something so pointless. After that, they give Mew some boxing gloves as well, which protect the monster's hand when striking. Mew makes sure not to back down and pulls some moves that might even put Mike Tyson to shame. Later that day, Emily teaches Mary magic by letting her know that it's all about visualization. In order for her to use a fire arrow, she needs to imagine a flaming arrow and channel her magical energy into that image. After following her instructions, Mary is able to defeat a bunch of skeleton knights, and since her magic is called Purify Undead, it's pretty effective against these kinds of monsters. Kazuhiko then decides to use the third floor to practice holy magic and asks Mew to deal with the remaining monsters. With any hesitation, he charges and punches those monsters to their demise. Following that, while Mary brushes Mew's fur, Kazuhiko mentions that they have taken care of their equipment problem, but can't figure out how that brush is a rare item. Emily informs him that it makes any beast's fur fluffy and boosts their physical resistance. Seeing him getting even more confused, Akane steps in and suggests continuing their preparations. Following that, Kazuhiko gave Mary her pay for the job, and since she ranked up, he paid her at an hourly rate of 2,000 yen. Mary gets overjoyed after seeing this much money and decides to buy a souvenir for Shiori. He then informs her that he got to E rank after eliminating 10,000 goblins and figures, that it might take her about the same time. Mary then questions about their work tomorrow, as it's Sunday, to which he replies, informing her that he might rest in the morning and head inside the dungeon in the afternoon. This makes her ask if he's planning on going somewhere in the morning, to which he disagrees, saying that there's going to be a special program about dungeon appearance in Sapporo, and he wishes to watch it to help plan for the future. He then advises Mary to get some rest, to which she agrees. Back at home, Mary is watching the news where they tell the civilians to expect 7 more dungeon appearances, but at the same time, they believe that it's premature to assume that there won't be any more than that. This whole situation has caused physicists to scratch their jingle bells in confusion, as they can't understand how long this is going to last. Turns out, Kazuhiko is watching the news as well and believes that Japan's government has been slow in responding to the situation, as there's no telling how long the society can remain safe. Meanwhile, at Japan's Ministry of Defense, people are discussing a test for civilians to access the dungeons. According to one of them, in the Yokohama dungeon, E-rank self-defense force members have already entered the second layer of the dungeon and have confirmed a skill called card gacha. However, the main concern is the competition over magic stones and equipment, since thousands of soldiers from the People's Liberation Army have begun entering the dungeons. Not only that, but experts have also raised the opinion, including proposals to establish a trading post for cards and equipment. When one of the men presents questions about the person leading the dungeon countermeasure division, he is told that they have entrusted it to Director Ishihara. Sometime later, the Japanese government finally approves the Dungeon Adventurer system, and trials are currently being conducted. Only those people who are older than 20 and have no criminal record, along with Japanese citizenship, are welcome to take the trial. One of the people taking the trials is named Akira, who is a martial artist. He has won both national and international tournaments. Since he is in a dungeon, Akira can fight to his heart's content, so he decided to sign up without hesitation and is confident that he can become the strongest adventurer of all time. At the primary examination site, Akira notices Kazuhiko and realizes that there are some geezers present as well. For the first part of the test, the examiner told everyone to complete a written test, and because Akira had already checked the basic dungeon knowledge and fundamentals, he easily passed the test. Next up is the physical fitness test, and Akira manages to pull 120 kilograms in the grip strength. After his turn, he notices Kazuhiko going to test his grip. As soon as Kazuhiko unbuttons his shirt, surprising Akira, as he didn't expect such an old fart to be rocking those guns on his arms. With that, Kazuhiko takes the grip strength test and manages to reach the 100 kilogram mark. Furthermore, they complete a 10-kilometer marathon, strength and lung capacity evaluation, vertical jump, and shuttle run. Akira, who has been watching Kazuhiko, realizes that he was holding back this whole time and doing it when the examiners aren't watching. After the tests are done, the top 100 from both written and physical exams move on to the second stage, and although Akira aims to get the first spot, he is a bit curious about Kazuhiko as well. After reading the list, he finds out that Kazuhiko made it into the top 30, even though he was holding back. Akira is sure that Kazuhiko's ability is much higher and hopes that he gets to see Kazuhiko's full strength in the next stage. Now that it's time for the second stage, the examiner informs everyone that the secondary exam will take place inside the Yokohama dungeon, and participants will be divided into groups of 10. During the exam, if a participant gets injured or loses their life, the government won't be responsible, so those who lack resolve are advised to leave. Right now, the first group is preparing to enter the dungeon, and the examiner informs everyone that 5 minutes on the surface equals 12 hours in the dungeons, and if each group's exam lasts 15 minutes, the test will be over in no time. Meanwhile, Akira looks at Kazuhiko and thinks how none of the participants stand out, even though they have well-trained bodies, but Kazuhiko is on a whole different level. Furthermore, Akira got lucky as he matched his physical test results with Kazuhiko, because of which the two of them are in the same group. Outside, the news reporters are broadcasting this live, informing everyone that the candidates are starting to enter the dungeon. And while Western nations are also starting this recruitment system, Japan was the first to officially institutionalize it at a national level. Seeing this makes Kazuhiko realize that the government wants to promote this system, but is unsure if they can even air the footage without any issue. Finally, it's time for the third group to enter the dungeon, the group that consists of Kazuhiko and Akira. As soon as they enter the dungeon, a girl from their group begins running ahead of the others. Kazuhiko informs Akira that her name is Ayako, a 26-year-old who is involved in the dungeon preservation movement for freedom and peace. Additionally, seeing that she is acting a bit recklessly, Akira decides to take the lead, as it doesn't make sense to let a woman do the heavy lifting. Suddenly, a rabbit monster appears in front of them, and while all the candidates start to discuss weapons they want to summon in order to fight it, Ayako stops them all. When Kazuhiko tries to tell her that it's dangerous, she tells him to leave it to her. Confused, Kazuhiko reminds her that she is up against a monster and it's dangerous to face it barehanded. However, Ayako yells at them for calling it a monster, as to them, the humans are the real invaders. According to her, any animal would bare its fangs if its home were suddenly invaded, and she believes that it will be all right as long as they approach them with love. Akira argues that they will just attack humans with the intent to eliminate, but Ayako refuses, saying that the monsters are the victims, as the Japanese government is launching military invasions into the otherworldly dungeons. In the end, they all let Ayako do whatever she wants, and after sitting down, she asks the bunny to come closer. Ayako then opens her arms, telling the rabbit that she's not an enemy and just wants to become friends with it. To her surprise, the rabbits instantly run towards her and jump on her lap. Ayako gets overwhelmed by its cuteness and begins calling it adorable, saying that she is on its side and will make sure to protect it. Suddenly, the rabbit shows her its real self and bites off her nose, turning Ayako into Voldemort. All the participants start to panic, along with Ayako, who starts to regret letting her guard down. Moreover, Kazuhiko tells the examiner that monsters are being drawn by Ayako's shouting and asks if they should continue the test like this. When the examiner starts to hesitate, Kazuhiko lets him know that Ayako let her fantasy get to her head, approached the monster and is now crying, putting her allies in danger, so it's better to leave her be. He believes that this situation might cause her to drop this naive idea of befriending them, and after hearing this, Ayako requests Kazuhiko to help her out. In the end, he agrees but asks everyone to follow him. After they are done treating Ayako and the bleeding stops, she apologizes to everyone for causing the exam to stop. However, no one seems to mind as the exam is starting in the evening anyway. As they move forward into the dungeon, more bunnies appear. Kazuhiko asks the examiner to take care of Ayako and the other examinees. One of the rabbits that is ahead of the others gets dealt by Akira, who finishes it off with a single strike, impressing Kazuhiko. Akira then tells Kazuhiko about the 3 rabbits behind him, and to his shock, he easily manages to deal with all 3 of them at the same time. After returning to the surface, the media reports about the injuries that Ayako sustained, and how the government has begun reviewing the future implementation of the entrance exam after this incident. Meanwhile, Kazuhiko is also present at the exam site, watching the news, and thinks that this accident could have been prevented. Furthermore, he is aware that there is no time for them to waste, as if that great monster incursion were to appear, humanity would be doomed. Just then, Akira appears, praising Kazuhiko for taking down those 3 rabbits with such a slick move, asking just who in the world he is. Before Kazuhiko even gets the chance to reply, Akira adds that Kazuhiko can't be an ordinary person, which makes him curious about him. When Kazuhiko jokingly asks if Akira swings the other way, he disagrees, saying that he is curious about Kazuhiko's strength, as he has never met anyone stronger than him. Moreover, Akira reveals that he is the karate world champion in the open-weight division, and the one who secured 6 consecutive dubs at the Brazilian Championship. After hearing all this, Kazuhiko remembers seeing his fight on illegal sports streaming websites, and while he hasn't seen Akira's stats, Kazuhiko is sure that he must be somewhere between D and E rank and can be a valuable asset for dungeon busters. Since the exam got cancelled, Akira can't help but hope that there will be exams in the future, to which Kazuhiko agrees. Nonetheless, he comes back to the topic, asking Kazuhiko about his story. But while Kazuhiko refuses to go into the details due to various reasons, he asks Akira the reason he decided to become an adventurer. Apparently, Akira isn't really into money or fame and just wants to get stronger and be able to unleash his full power. All he wants is to fight being stronger than humans because he is always craving intense battles. Seeing that he is a battle junkie, Kazuhiko finds him to be an interesting guy. Akira then asks Kazuhiko the same question and gets told by Kazuhiko that he doesn't want to become a dungeon adventurer but a dungeon conqueror. However, before Kazuhiko could finish, someone knocked on the door and 3 sharp-chinned military dudes appeared. One of them introduces himself as Masahiko, the commander of the Yokohama dungeon facility, and thanks the 2 of them for their cooperation. He then gets straight to the point and asks both Kazuhiko and Akira to become Japan's finest dungeon adventurers. Confused, Kazuhiko asks him to elaborate, and Masahiko further adds that the 2 of them have passed the adventurer qualification test and hands them their official licenses. Kazuhiko then asks him about what might happen to the adventurer system, as Ayako's failed nose job has shaken public opinion. Masahiko agrees, saying that the future of the adventurer system is now uncertain and needs to be carefully reviewed. This is exactly why they need the 2 of them to prove that the civilian recruitment system is effective, and although it might seem selfish, it's a direct message from the Prime Minister. Luckily, none of them seems to mind this, which comes as a relief to Masahiko. Following that, he questions Kazuhiko about his profession and gets told that he is a management consultant. While Masahiko is aware that Akira is a karate champion, he can't get his head around what Kazuhiko had been up to before this. Before replying to Masahiko's question, Kazuhiko asks him to sign a contract, which ends up enraging Masahiko, who reassures Kazuhiko that he isn't a blabbermouth. Furthermore, Kazuhiko asks Akira to sign it as well, and when they comply, Kazuhiko asks the 2 of them not to discuss what they are about to hear any further. With that, he lets them know that he has the title of First Contact, and that the world's first dungeon, named Abyss, happened to appear in his backyard. After that, he shows them the potion card, the highest grade potion that can heal any disease or restore lost body parts. Seeing this card makes Masahiko realize that this card alone could easily start a war. Akira also realizes that the reason Kazuhiko is so strong is that he has been fighting life-or-death battles on a regular basis. Ultimately, Masahiko requests Kazuhiko's cooperation for the future of Japan, letting him know that the self-defense forces will provide him with their full support. After thanking Masahiko for believing him, he humbly accepts his request. Now, a few days have passed since the first Dungeon Adventurer exam took place, and while there were concerns at one point due to the injuries, 2 adventurers have already entered the dungeon under the government's orders. Additionally, there have been voices from other countries as well, and it's very likely that the United Nations' proposed dungeon adventurers' headquarters might become a reality. Currently, Japan's first adventurers, Kazuhiko and Akira, return from the dungeon and are carrying multiple bags. Although it has only been 5 hours since they entered the Yokohama dungeon, for them, nearly a month has passed. Turns out they have secured 100 kilograms of magic stones, and since this exceeds the amount required for the hydrogen power plan, it is starting to raise expectations for domestic energy production. Not only that, but these magic stones are bought at 100 yen per gram, which means the 2 of them have earned a total of 10 million yen for 100 kilograms. According to the Dungeon Adventurer Management Bureau, this cost is lower than importing gas, so the adventurers will continue receiving rewards based on the amount of magic stones they collect. As the 2 of them exit the dungeon, a huge crowd of reporters and journalists is gathered around. Firstly, they are asked to sign a document, so the 10 million yen reward is transferred to their account. Following that, they are asked what they wish to do with the cards they collected. Kazuhiko decides to keep his cards since they're the first drop items he obtained from the dungeon. However, Akira, on the other hand, decides to keep only 1 and sell the remaining cards. After cashing their reward, the 2 of them walk towards the crowd of journalists to answer their questions, and Kazuhiko lets them know that they defeated a total of 33,000 monsters, which means they were defeating 4,000 monsters per day. Akira also mentions that his time in the dungeon was like a dream, and as for his earnings, he plans to eat some delicacies with it. Kazuhiko also clarifies that they have worked 720 hours to earn 10 million yen, which means they were only earning less than 10,000 yen per hour. Lastly, they are asked if they wish to continue being adventurers, to which both of them agree. Following that, Kazuhiko makes an announcement and informs everyone that he is starting a company named Dungeon Busters, and all the profit from selling magic stones and cards will be the company's revenue. Akari is going to be the first employee of their company, and from now on, they wish to reach the furthest depths of the dungeon. One of the reporters asks Kazuhiko to tell them a little more about Dungeon Busters, and he lets them know that his goal is to continue exploring dungeons to unravel the mysteries. In addition to that, they are also looking to recruit those who share the same vision. Later that day, Kazuhiko meets up with Iwamoto, and after exchanging small talk, he informs Kazuhiko that the office cafe issue they discussed earlier is going smoothly. Furthermore, he talks to Kazuhiko about the money laundering thing and reassures him that he doesn't need to tell him the details. Additionally, he suggests putting the contract on hold since Kazuhiko has become an adventurer, so it's best to leave himself a way back just in case. Kazuhiko finds this pretty reasonable and thanks Iwamoto for all the support. Iwamoto makes sure to congratulate Kazuhiko for founding the Dungeon Busters company and advises him to keep doing his best. Eventually, Kazuhiko introduces Mary to Akira, and after they are done introducing themselves, he mentions how Mary seems like a pretty strong person. Kazuhiko makes sure to warn Akira not to touch Mew as it might look like a cutie, but in reality, it is stronger than he is. After that, he introduces Akane and Emily to Akira as well, informing him that they are card characters. Ever since the first dungeon appeared 5 months ago, Kazuhiko has been training in the A-rank dungeon, and this is why he has started using this power that's capable of surprising even world champions. This makes Akira realize why Kazuhiko is so strong and mentions how he'd love to spar with him someday. But for now, Mary decides to take this offer and lets Mew spar with him. As the fight commences, Akira comments on how this rabbit moves like crazy and reminds himself that a world champion like him can't afford to lose to a rabbit. After carefully examining the rabbit's moves, Kazuhiko figures that it's using martial arts and tries taking it down with a light jab. But to his shock, the bunny easily dodges it and counterattacks by punching Akira right in the face. After accepting his defeat, he praises the bunny for having an insane level of skills, and Kazuhiko lets him know that he had him fight Mew to teach him about his weaknesses. Thanks to this sparring match, Akira has realized that his fighting techniques are designed for humans and might not work against monsters. Kazuhiko agrees, saying that while Akira might be the strongest human, there is still a whole different level of strength available. What Kazuhiko wants is for Akira not to aim for becoming the strongest man in the world, but rather the strongest being of all. Akira gladly accepts this challenge and lets Kazuhiko know that he will be counting on him. Later, the two of them notice a flying squirrel in the dungeon, and since it's still a monster, Kazuhiko advises Akira not to go thinking that it's cute. Just then, the monster begins attacking them with its fire breath, and just in time, Kazuhiko smacks it using his trusty shovel, causing the monster to crash into the wall and die. Seeing this makes Akira mention how ruthless Kazuhiko is, while Kazuhiko, who is focused on the magic stone, notes that it weighs around 4 grams. Furthermore, Kazuhiko informs everyone that if each of them defeats a monster per minute, that's 120 monsters per hour, and in 15 hours, they can defeat 1,440. With this new goal in mind, he suggests starting the Yokohama dungeon conquest. Elsewhere, at the Ministry of Defense office, the director named Yuki contemplates the fact that due to Ayako's injury, their image has been hurt, and the number of aspiring adventurers isn't growing. Since dungeons are a global security threat, they need to recruit adventurers or else Japan's future will be at risk. Additionally, with the world watching, she can't afford to back down but is unsure how they are supposed to convey the benefits of becoming an adventurer. Eventually, she stands from her desk, asking one of the employees to get the car ready as they are heading to the Yokohama dungeon. Meanwhile, Akira discusses the fact that he doesn't gain experience points or anything by defeating monsters, and if one needs to get stronger, they need to train themselves. Even though he has defeated more than 10,000 monsters, he still hasn't ranked up. Kazuhiko agrees, saying that there's no game-like experience point system, but he believes that there's some sort of factor that strengthens the body through defeating monsters. He is sure about this because, compared to before entering the dungeon, both his stamina and sausage size have increased. On the other hand, Yuki rethinks how she has decided on an income of 10 million yen for 5 hours in the dungeon, and has also issued identity cards to ensure that it can be established as a new profession. Not only that, but she has also gathered media and prepared plenty of other rewards, which is why Yuki is confused regarding what else could be done. During the second day of Yokohama dungeon excavation, thanks to Kazuhiko's and Akira's collaborative efforts, they managed to gather a total of 150 kilograms of magic stones. After that, it's time for them to sort the magic cards they gathered in the dungeons, and while Kazuhiko decides to keep his share, Akira is planning on keeping one but selling the others this time as well. After they are done, Akira mentions how the television crew is present again, to which Kazuhiko agrees, saying that this system is expanding with Japan at its center. Akira figures that it must be due to Ayako's accident, as he has also heard about protests against civilians being recruited. Kazuhiko believes that for now, the government will try to guide the media and manage public perception, and for this, the two of them have been singled out. But according to Kazuhiko, hunting goblins is much easier than doing all this work for 10 million yen. Suddenly, their conversation is interrupted when an officer knocks on the door, saying that there's something to be discussed with the two of them. Before long, Kazuhiko finds himself sitting in front of Yuki, fighting the urge not to stare at those two mountain tops. Nonetheless, Yuki introduces herself as the director of the Adventurer Management Bureau, saying that she has something to talk about. The thing she wants to ask is their insight on securing civilian adventurers. Even when she is focusing on promotional efforts on the financial benefits, the applications for the Adventurer program are still lacking. This reminds Kazuhiko that all the teams after the 4th one have retired, to which Yuki replies that it was the best thing to do, as currently they need to focus on restoring their image using rewards and media coverage. Hearing all this makes Kazuhiko question the reason the government is so determined to recruit adventurers, as this feels like a military recruitment. To his shock, Yuki agrees, informing him that the government has taken note of the magic stone's ability to create hydrogen energy, but to cover all of Japan's needs, they would need a total of 45,000 tons of magic stone. Right now, Japan spends 20 trillion yen on fossil fuels, but this hydrogen energy could help free up the annual budget. According to Yuki, if one person can secure 100 kilograms of stones per day, they can secure a total of 20 tons annually. But in order to gather 45,000 tons, they will need 2,250 adventurers like Kazuhiko. At this rate, they won't have enough adventurers and the whole plan will come to a standstill. Just in time, an idea pops into Kazuhiko's head and he asks Yuki to approve it. A few days later, somewhere in Tokyo, a pure-breed otaku is disappointed over not being able to buy his favorite game. His name is Matsuo, a 42-year-old virgin. When he graduated from college, there were only exploitative companies, which is why Matsuo currently works as a freelance programmer. While walking home, he notices Kazuhiko's press conference on a television and stops by to watch it. Kazuhiko starts off by saying that even though it's Christmas, he still wants everyone to listen to him. With the help of the hot chicks, he then reveals 2 giant blocks of cash, informing the listeners that the money behind him is around 1.5 billion yen, the same amount an adventurer can earn in a year. This is a big deal since an elite salaryman only earns about 500 million yen over their lifetime, but an adventurer can earn it in just 1 year. Even if the audience watching is 45 and built like a whale, it doesn't matter, as the Dungeon Buster organization is inviting people to join them as apprentice adventurers in Yokohama dungeon. And with only 1 day of training, they will be able to pass the adventurer exam. 90-kilogram weight and 30% body fat wouldn't be a problem either, as both he and Akira will make sure to transform the person in 1 day. After all that, Kazuhiko tells everyone to apply through the Ministry of Defense website, reassuring the audience that everyone is welcome to join. When do you think Kazuhiko will become an S-rank adventurer? Comment Dungeon if you'd like a part 2 of this series. As usual, thank you for tuning in and we'll catch you in the next one.